I became a long-haul trucker because I liked the idea of solitude. No coworkers, no customers, just me, the open road, and a diesel engine that thrummed like a living thing beneath me. I started with a big company, standard routes, clean trucks, everything by the book, but the pay wasn't great, and the hours were brutal. Then a guy I knew from trucking school told me about Everroad Logistics. They pay 6 figures, full benefits. No loading, no unloading. You just drive. Too good to be true. That should have been my first red flag. When I showed up at the Everroad terminal, it didn't feel like any other job site. The parking lot was half full of trucks that didn't look like they'd moved in months. There were cameras everywhere, and the dispatcher who greeted me wore sunglasses inside. He handed me a manila envelope labeled Tier 3 Driver Orientation. Inside was a contract, a non-disclosure agreement, and a single page titled Operational Rules for Class C Hauls. There were 7 rules. 1. Never open the trailer. 2. Do not stop between mile markers 201 and 209 on Route 68. 3. If you hear knocking from inside the trailer, do not acknowledge it. 4. If someone approaches your truck after 11 p.m., do not engage, even if they appear to be an employee. 5. If your radio tunes to frequency 19.6, do not respond. 6. If you see headlights with no vehicle, increase speed by 10 miles per hour. 7. Do not return to the terminal without performing a full post-run check using the provided checklist. I asked the dispatcher if it was a joke. He looked at me and said, "They're for your safety. Follow them. No exceptions." I should have walked away. The rig was pristine. Shiny red cab, spotless mirrors, full tank. But the trailer was unmarked and icy cold to the touch, like it had just been pulled from a freezer. The manifest said I was hauling 12,000 pounds of industrial equipment to a facility outside El Paso. No load paperwork, no contact names, just a GPS coordinate. 6 hours in, I stopped at a truck stop to stretch my legs. The sun had just set. As I climbed down, I saw a man in a reflective vest standing near the rear of my trailer. "Your brake lights are out," he said. He didn't have a truck, no vehicle anywhere, and when I blinked, he was suddenly 2 feet closer. I got back in the cab and drove. In the mirror, he stood perfectly still. Then he raised his hand and waved. My next run was from Amarillo to Vegas. The route cut through Route 68. I remembered the rule about mile markers 201 to 209. At mile 203, my GPS died. My phone lost signal. The road got darker, quieter. That's when I saw her. A woman in a torn hoodie stood in the middle of the road, pale, waving both arms. I started slowing. Then I remembered rule number 2. I swerved and kept going. In my mirror, she started running. But she wasn't running right. Her legs moved too fast, arms flailing like she didn't know how to use them. When I stopped at a rest area 3 hours later, I found scratches on the side of my cab, long ones, and mud, all the way up by the window. 2 weeks in, my radio started tuning itself. One night, it spun to 19.6. Static. Then a voice. Driver 311. We see you. The voice sounded like mine, but deeper. Let us out. I shut the radio off. It didn't help. The voice kept talking, through the AC vents, through the tires. We rode with you. We remember your name. I drove 110 miles per hour until the voice faded. The first time I was routed back to the depot, I almost didn't go. The checklist included things like check trailer temperature, note any biological residue, listen for movement before opening doors. My trailer was warm, warmer than the cab, but I opened it anyway. Inside was empty, except for claw marks and a note. You broke rule number 1. It was written in my own handwriting. I met a driver at a rest stop who said he used to work Tier 4. He looked like he hadn't slept in years. We're not hauling cargo, he said. We're feeding something, moving it around, keeping it entertained. I didn't believe him until I saw the passenger seatbelt in my cab buckle itself one night. I tried to quit. I called the dispatch. No answer. Emails bounced. I showed up at the depot, and it was empty. But my rig was still there. Engine running. Inside, the logbook was filled out in my handwriting. Routes I hadn't taken yet. Dates that hadn't happened. And a final note. You drive until it doesn't need you anymore. That was 3 months ago. I haven't stopped driving since. No sleep, no food, just the road. Every night, I hear knocking from the trailer. And now, when I pass other trucks, they don't wave. They just stare. Because they know. Because they hear it too. I've been driving a taxi for over a decade. You meet all kinds of people. Drunks, lovers, liars, tourists, talkers, and the completely silent. But some rides stick with you long after the meter stops. There was one passenger I picked up at 3 a.m. a few years ago, and no matter how many nights I drive, how many faces I see, I still think about him. It was a cold Thursday night. Rain was falling hard enough that my wipers couldn't keep up. The streets were mostly empty. Just how I like it. I'd pulled into a gas station parking lot to sip some coffee when the alert came in. Pickup requested at a corner about 6 blocks away. No name, just a location. I pulled up to the corner. No one was there. I waited. After about 2 minutes, I saw a figure appear out of the alley. He wasn't running or walking with urgency, just gliding, like he already knew I'd be there. He got in the back seat without saying a word. Where to, I asked. He gave me an address about 20 minutes out. No traffic at this hour. So I nodded and started driving. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not bad, just old, like old books and damp wood. Then the sound of his breathing, slow, measured. For a few minutes, we drove in silence. Then he spoke. "Do you think it matters?" I looked at him in the mirror. Does what matter? The things we do, the things we regret. His voice was smooth, almost melodic. But there was something off about it, like he was trying to sound human. I chuckled nervously. Big question for 3 a.m. He didn't laugh. I tried to focus on the road. The city lights flickered past. Rain tapped steadily against the glass. "Have you ever wished you could take something back?" he asked. "Yeah, I think everyone has." He leaned forward slightly. I could see his face more clearly now. He looked young, maybe late 20s, but his eyes, they were sunken, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His skin was pale, almost gray. "Would you trade a memory," he said, "if it meant undoing a mistake?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You passed her on 5th Street. She waved, but you didn't stop." I felt the blood drain from my face. That had happened 3 years ago. A woman had stepped out into the street, waving her arms. I was tired. I was off shift. I drove past her. They found her body in an alley. The next morning, I slammed the brakes. "Who the hell are you?" I shouted. But the back seat was empty. Just empty. Rain poured. The door never opened. I got out and checked the street. Nothing. No footsteps. No sound. I sat there for an hour before driving again. When I got home, my phone had a new voicemail. No number, just a voice. My own voice. "Would you trade a memory if it meant undoing a mistake?" I didn't drive for a week after that. I told myself it was a hallucination. Stress, fatigue, a trick of the light and the rain. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That man knew something he couldn't have known. He knew what I did, or didn't do. A week later, I was back on the road. Bills don't wait for mental clarity. It was quieter than usual, almost too quiet. The kind of silence that makes you feel like the city is holding its breath. Then, late one night, I picked up a woman from outside a hospital. She didn't look well, pale, hair matted from the rain. She asked to go to the same address the man had asked for. I paused but didn't say anything. As we drove, she started humming. A low, broken tune I couldn't quite place. I glanced at her in the mirror. She wasn't looking at me, just staring out the window, like she was seeing something far away. "Do you believe in penance?" she asked. I hesitated. "Not sure. Sometimes," she said. "The road takes you somewhere to remind you what you left behind." Then she looked me dead in the eyes through the mirror. "She forgave you." I nearly crashed into a stop sign. I pulled over, shaking. "What did you say?" But she was gone. The seat belt was still buckled. The door hadn't opened. Nothing. The meter was still running. I started seeing them after that. Not always clearly. Sometimes in reflections. Sometimes just silhouettes at the edge of intersections. Watching. They weren't angry. just present, like they were waiting for something. One night, I drove by 5th Street again. I swore I saw someone standing exactly where the woman had waved me down all those years ago. Same clothes, same posture. I stopped this time, but there was no one there. Just an empty streetlight flickering above the wet pavement. And yet, when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was someone sitting in the back seat. It was me, but older, gaunt, silent. I blinked, and he was gone. Now, I don't take fares after midnight. I still drive, but only in the day. Every time my meter hits 3:0 a.m., I feel cold. The air changes. The city feels unfamiliar. And when the radio crackles or my rear view fogs up from nothing, I know they're still there. Not haunting me, just reminding me that some things never go away. Not time, not guilt, not the things you didn't do, and definitely not the things that get into your cab when you're too tired to look. I still have that voicemail. Sometimes I play it late at night. The voice is mine, but the words, I've never said them. Would you trade a memory if it meant undoing a mistake?